In 1963, in the heart of central Turkey, a man encountered a peculiar problem. His chickens kept disappearing. They would slip through a narrow crack at the back of his cellar and simply never return. Frustrated and curious, he decided to investigate further. With a hammer in hand, he knocked through the wall to discover what lay beyond. To his astonishment, the crack opened into an expansive passageway. The passageway then descended into a stairway, leading him into a dark, mysterious realm. As he ventured down the stairway, he passed through several carved rooms, each more intriguing than the last. Beneath his unassuming home in the town of Derinkuyu lay a hidden city, an extensive underground complex chiseled directly into solid rock, descending as deep as an 18-story building buried within the earth, rather than reaching for the sky. Approximately 85 meters below the surface, this subterranean haven could accommodate around 20,000 people, along with their livestock. It boasted stables, kitchens, wine presses, wells, chapels, and a sophisticated system of air circulation that flowed through shafts no wider than a forearm. Engineers who later examined the site were baffled by the ingenious design, as there were no machines involved in maintaining airflow to the lowest levels. Who could carve such an expansive city deep into solid rock? What were they so terrified of that they preferred the Earth's embrace over sunlight? This is the remarkable story of Derinkuyu, exploring who built it, how it functioned, and how an entire population learned to vanish beneath their farms whenever armies approached. This narrative doesn't begin with an army. It begins with the rock. Derinkuyu is located in Cappadocia, a region in central Turkey sitting on a high plateau, approximately 1,300 meters above sea level. Millions of years ago, volcanic activity blanketed this landscape in ash. Over time, that ash solidified into a type of rock known as tuff. Tuff possesses a unique property that influenced everything that followed. When buried underground, it remains soft enough to carve with simple tools, almost like hard cheese. However, once exposed to air, it hardens rapidly. A wall carved on Monday would be solid rock by the following month. For the inhabitants of this plateau, this geological gift was an opportunity waiting to be seized. They could dig downward using basic iron tools, and as they excavated deeper, the tuff became more solid and reliable. Yet the rock alone doesn't entirely explain their motivations. Many societies have sat atop soft stone without tunneling into it. The reason the people of Cappadocia chose to burrow downwards was that, above ground, they had nowhere to hide. Consider the geographical context of this plateau. It is an open landscape, flat and exposed, devoid of mountain ranges to retreat into or coastlines to protect. For millennia, it served as a corridor through which armies marched toward richer territories. The Hittites, Persians, Greeks, Romans, and later the early Islamic conquests all traversed this land. A farming family standing in an open field could see a column of riders approaching from miles away, with nothing between them and the horizon. They couldn't construct walls tall enough or muster armies to defend themselves. Thus, they resorted to the one strategy that the rock permitted. They reversed the logic of a fortress. Instead of building upwards, where they would be visible to any attacker, they descended into the earth where invaders couldn't even locate them. This decision created new challenges, one after another. Addressing these problems one at a time transformed a few concealed cellars into a city capable of sheltering 20,000 inhabitants. The first challenge was the most fundamental. How do you hollow out 18 levels of rock without the structure collapsing on you? The ingenious solution lay in their construction technique. They never carved a single open void. Instead, they utilized the stone itself to bear the weight. Walking through Derinkuyu today, one navigates a web of narrow corridors and modest chambers, never encountering cathedral-sized halls. The builders recognized that solid pillars and compact spaces could support the weight above. They designed small rooms with thick columns, allowing the tuff to bear its own load. The durability of their construction is evident in a simple fact. Throughout the centuries, despite earthquakes that have devastated towns above ground, not a single floor of Derinkuyu has ever collapsed. With this structural problem solved, they were free to continue excavating. However, as they dug deeper, Another significant challenge emerged. The 85 meters of rock above their heads posed a new issue. It cut off the air supply. A few individuals could survive in a sealed cellar for a limited time, but 20,000 people, along with their livestock and cooking fires, would quickly suffocate. The builders were acutely aware of this and devised a remarkable feature that continues to impress engineers even today. They created ventilation shafts, over 50 of them. These narrow vertical chimneys were drilled straight up through the rock to the surface, some extending down more than 50 meters. They effectively pulled fresh air down while allowing stale air and smoke to escape. The shafts were meticulously placed, ensuring that air could reach even the deepest occupied levels. There were no fans, bellows, or any moving parts, just holes in the rock, expertly angled and sized by people using hand tools and oil lamps, accomplishing what a modern building would require a mechanical system and consistent power supply to achieve. The result? Tens of thousands of people, along with their animals and cooking fires, could breathe comfortably beneath 85 meters of stone, a system that has functioned uninterrupted for over a millennium. With the air supply resolved, the city was now secure enough to withstand a siege. A siege is ultimately a contest of time. Specifically, which side runs out of water first? Here, the builders had anticipated their enemies' moves. They dug wells, but in a very strategic manner. These wells extended down to the water table from inside the city, and critically, many of them did not open to the surface at all. An attacker standing in the deserted town above would have no way to locate the water source or poison it. The inhabitants below could draw clean water for as long as necessary, while the army above remained oblivious to its location. Interestingly, this detail has an unusual afterlife. For centuries, after the city was abandoned and forgotten, locals in Derinkuyu continued to draw their drinking water from one of those old shafts, completely unaware that their buckets were descending past the ceilings of a concealed city. The Turkish name for the town reflects this history. Derinkuyu translates to deep well. The city was now capable of standing without collapsing, breathing without machines, and drinking without exposing itself. This leads us to the moment for which everything was built, the day a lookout spotted riders on the horizon. Picture the surface settlement on an ordinary morning. Houses, fields, animals, smoke rising from cooking fires. Suddenly, a warning descends from higher ground. A raiding party is approaching. In a matter of minutes, the comprehensive plan that had taken generations to carve into the rock would be executed. The entire population descended, not just a handful, but everyone, including children, food supplies, and as much livestock as possible. They moved down level by level into the darkness, closing doors behind them at key choke points. The doors are what everyone remembers. They are not ordinary wooden gates. They are massive circular slabs of stone, carved like enormous millstones, some weighing nearly half a ton. Each slab rests in a carved track beside a passageway, and when danger approaches, it can be rolled across the corridor to seal it. Most of these stones have a round hole bored straight through the center, leading to ongoing debate about their purpose, whether it was for sight, to drive a spear through at an enemy, or to operate a beam from within. The critical detail is their geometry. These stones could only be moved from the inside. A defender could roll one shut and brace it, but an attacker standing in the corridor would have no grip or leverage to push it back. Importantly, the city did not rely on just one of these doors. Each level could be sealed independently, ensuring that if one door was breached, the inhabitants could simply retreat deeper and secure the next level. The narrow corridors did the rest of the work. The passages between levels were deliberately cut low and narrow, so tight that individuals had to stoop and move in single file. An armored attacker could not charge through. They would have to crawl one by one into a dark tunnel they did not know, approaching a stone door they could not open, while the defenders on the other side waited with every advantage. Now, imagine yourself in the raiders' position, expecting an easy target, a farming village to plunder. They arrive only to find warm, empty houses. No people, no animals, and the food is already gone. They come across a hole in the ground that seems to lead nowhere. sealed below by a stone that cannot move. They might burn the empty houses or sit and wait, but waiting costs them the one thing a raiding party can rarely afford: time. While they linger, 20,000 people sit comfortably in cool, ventilated rooms with clean water and weeks' worth of food, listening to the sounds of boots above them, biding their time. Every hour the raiders waste is an hour they are not plundering elsewhere, and eventually, the arithmetic forces them back onto their horses, empty-handed. The math never favored the attackers. As far as historical records show, this is precisely how events unfolded. Cappadocia was raided repeatedly over the centuries, and the underground cities consistently fulfilled their purpose. This raises a pivotal question. Who were they hiding from for so long that they continued to expand a city 85 meters deep into the earth? The origins are genuinely uncertain, and honest archaeology acknowledges this. The most widely accepted theory is that the first levels were carved by the Phrygians, an Iron Age people, around the 8th or 7th century BCE. Some researchers argue that the earliest galleries could even date back to the Hittites. What is indisputable, however, is who transformed this shelter into the expansive complex we can explore today, and that work belongs to the medieval centuries, primarily to a specific group of people. As Christianity spread through the region under Roman and later Byzantine rule, Greek-speaking Christian communities took the older tunnels and expanded them, making them deeper, wider, and far more intricate. They added chapels, larger living spaces, and classrooms, all motivated by a recurring need that echoed through generations. From the 7th to the 8th centuries onward, this frontier became a battleground between the Byzantine Empire and the advancing armies of the early Islamic caliphates. Raiding parties swept across the Anatolian plateau almost every year during the campaigning season. The farming Christians of Cappadocia faced the same dire circumstances their ancestors had confronted under the Hittites and Persians: an open landscape, a more formidable enemy, and no army of their own. Consequently, they did what the rock had always permitted. They descended and expanded the city. This period marked the transformation of a mere shelter into the vast, intricate place we can explore today. The chapels carved into the stone, the expansive halls, and the multitude of living spaces all trace back to communities that anticipated the return of raiders and adapted accordingly. They were not improvising in a crisis. They were maintaining a permanent insurance policy against an enemy they knew would persist in their attacks. This was not a one-off emergency. It was a lifestyle that endured for centuries. Threats evolved over time, from Arab raiders to the Mongol armies that swept through the region in the 14th century under Timur. Through all these challenges, the underground cities of Cappadocia consistently absorbed entire populations and ensured their survival when the danger receded. Derinkuyu was not alone. While it was the largest, the plateau is riddled with similar subterranean sites. Archaeologists have documented over 200 underground settlements across the region. Derinkuyu, being the deepest, was interconnected with its neighboring city, Kemakle, via a tunnel believed to stretch several kilometers, allowing people to move between the two underground cities without ever emerging into the open air, where enemies lurked. The design of the rooms themselves indicates that these were not mere panic shelters where individuals huddled for an afternoon. They reveal a way of life sustained underground. Stables feature rings carved into the rock for tethering animals. Communal kitchens display blackened ceilings from generations of cooking smoke. And there are presses for making wine and oil, deep storage rooms for grain, and cool cellars capable of preserving food during lengthy sieges. On the second level, a wide room with a vaulted ceiling, a rarity for the site, serves as a religious school, with smaller study rooms branching off from it. There are also chapels carved into the stone and graves. People were born, educated, fed, and buried in this city without ever seeing the sun. This distinction marks the difference between a hiding place and a city. A hiding place might grant you an afternoon of safety, but Derinkuyu was built to allow an entire community to pause its life underground and later resume it intact, as if the war above had simply been waited out. Time and again, it was. If Derinkuyu resolved the challenges of survival so thoroughly, One might wonder why anyone ever ceased using it. The answer lies not in the city's failure, but in the gradual transformation of the world above it. As the region fell under stable Ottoman rule and large-scale raiding diminished, the daily threats that justified an underground existence receded. The Christian communities that had carved and maintained the site still utilized the tunnels during difficult times, with accounts of them taking refuge there as late as the early 20th century. However, the constant necessity had vanished, and the city is only preserved as long as people relied on it. The final break came in 1923. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, Greece and Turkey executed a forced population exchange, uprooting the Greek-speaking Christians of Cappadocia, the very individuals whose ancestors had built and sustained Derinkuyu for over a millennium, and sending them to Greece. They left, taking with them the knowledge of the city's existence. The entrances were sealed or simply forgotten. New families moved into the homes above, lived their lives on the surface, and drew water from a peculiar deep well without ever questioning what their buckets passed on the way down. The greatest underground city of the ancient world lay directly beneath an ordinary Turkish town, silent and complete for nearly 40 years, until a man went searching for his chickens. When that wall was breached in 1963 and the passages revealed themselves, archaeologists quickly recognized the significance of their discovery. They began mapping it level by level, descending past 40 meters and even deeper. To this day, only about 8 of Derinkuyu's levels are accessible to the public, while the rest extend further down than the tourist route permits, leaving researchers to debate just how far the lowest galleries reach. Today, you can explore Derinkuyu yourself. It is part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and visitors navigate the same narrow, stooping passages the builders once carved, passing by the massive stone doors still resting in their tracks, the stables, the wine presses, and the vaulted school, while air flows quietly through shafts that have fulfilled their purpose for over 1,000 years. Engineers studying the ventilation system remain impressed, for it operates effectively. Constructed by individuals wielding hand tools and oil lamps, utilizing an understanding of their own rock that we are still striving to fully comprehend. The man who discovered it was not in search of the largest underground city ever unearthed. He was merely looking for his chickens. The city had awaited him all along, directly beneath the floor he stood upon, precisely where its builders had left it, lying in the dark, just as it had always done, waiting for whoever would finally descend the stairs. We unearth forgotten knowledge that the modern world has overlooked. What buried structures should we explore next? Subscribe, and let's keep digging.